Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Next item is the consent agenda. Quite a few licenses on this one in the last meeting of the year. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to something that's not on the agenda? Next is old business. First item of old business is the resolution for authorizing and providing for acquisition and construction of the community and recreation facility improvements. Anybody here from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Council discussion? Questions?
Well, I thought that we were going to wait until we got the engineer's estimate.
So we did. It was, I believe it's in your packet, correct, Glenn?
It's in there. I think it's in there.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. There's a prior and a current.
Yeah, there's actually two, I believe, that are included in there.
Yeah, there's two
I was
of us.
staring at the prior and I went, they don't be changed.
Right.
Then I scrolled down and it says there. There's an email from Lynn, got a link on it, it takes you to a file that's got it kind of all put together. Hard to find in Google Docs.
Now I might like this one.
This quarter, Scott, do you guys want to go over it real quick about what was discussed in the committee?
Yeah, I think probably the easiest way to do that is put the pro forma up for the quality of life fund. The spreadsheet.
The colored one.
Yeah,
It's got different
the
colors on
Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, right there you go.
You have that one.
Is this what?
Okay, yeah, so that, there's a prior and then
This one.
oops,
This
that,
is-
does it say current? Yep, and so that next slide, right? So there's the totals there and they'll be down here as well. That's the new estimate. So I think we'll just talk to the changes that we rationalized since the last council meeting. And if I remember right, the donations went up by 25,000 to 100,000 for the first year, total of 300,000. I think that's one change that's shown in here. Then the other, probably the biggest change, two of them that are related. We did get the estimate back from the engineering group, and if you see on the page above, they kind of itemize it out. But it's come back in at just a little over $2 million for the construction. And also updated as a part of that is the state tax credit that I think we had in at 300,000. I think we're now showing at 410,000. I think those are the only three numbers that have changed since the last meeting. Obviously, they big impact, but everything else flows through, and looking at this pro forma like we did last time.
We got the salary.
Yeah, okay, good point. I think we kept it at, I think the numbers changed, but I think it was so close. We did move to the minimum in the 2022 salary schedule of 1316 that we approved last time. So if they're city employees, that's where they'll have to be. So that was included in there. I didn't see the number change, so I don't know how the math actually changed. It'd be a slight change either way. I think we put in 50K, which might have been slightly high on the $12 an hour. Anyway, the key element is to look at operating cost. Again, these are assumptions that have been made by, various people who, have provided these. I think those are open for discussion. If someone has a better perspective on whether these are high, low, or accurate. But so the total operating cost, obviously, of this thing after you build it is what's going to be, encumbered on future councils. Can you afford to operate this thing? So what this thing looks like from a 2022 to 2030 view, the numbers to really pay attention to are those operating costs at the bottom are moved up into the use line under the debt, the Bower Building debt. So you see the debt and the operating costs. Those two lines, the blue one in the middle and one just above it, are what the cost of building and operating this building out through 2030, and obviously the debt will go beyond that. So I think as you look at that, you really look at the cash balance at the very bottom. So everything added up, puts and takes. You look at what is the cash balance of this quality of life fund, which is that 1% sales tax. And the other thing we did, and we probably need to do a better job, we'll put one in here that shows the assumptions we made: sales tax 1% growth annually. I think we had 1% on the actual program revenue with a $15,000 annual start is what we think would drive, and just adding 1%, which starting point may be low and that growth may be low, but it's on the conservative side. Then the other things, utilities, there's 1% or 2% on some of these. So we put in here that shows the percentage that we used to project out kind of inflation and those types of things that are going to impact this. But the bottom line is, if you look at the total operating cost at the bottom, and then you look up the end cash balance, the gray line below beginning cash balance, that's what the fund is going to have available after the library bond is paid, the Bower Building debt is paid, and the Bower Building or the community center operating costs are paid. So you can see it starts at $158,650 for, am I on the right line? $158,650 for ending cash balance next year. And then you can see it jumps way up based on sales tax credits landing in 2023. And then you kind of see it just starts dropping as the operating costs and the building, the bond payments are made. And if you look out past, when the debt is paid off for the library bond in 28, it's almost nothing. You can see it's $160,000 at that point. So there'll be $160,000, then continues to drop as you see the cash balance of 82, and then pretty much zeroes out in 2030. So again, making the assumptions that we made, this thing supports itself at least to 2030.
So how long is the bond for?
I'm assuming it's a 20-year bond.
It's correct, it's 20 years. Yeah.
So the level payment 20-year bond projection is what we do there.
I gotta throw in one more element. This is without any extra fundraising,
Oh,
which we've been working on
Yeah, which
diligently.
is definitely gonna happen.
Right.
So what you can think of that is, if we raise $100,000, that drops right to the ending cash balance line, because everything else has been accounted for. That ending cash balance then will move clear to the right, and so that thing would actually be, $107,000 in 2030, because that's all incremental to what we're showing here. So anything we raise is going to increase that cash balance. That's a great point.
Corey, you want to give a brief
Yeah.
update of your?
Yeah, so at CDC, we've been working on sort of what that would look like, the fundraising, and we wanted to do something a little bit non-traditional, kind of get some excitement around making some donations. And what we've kind of come up with here, and kind of had some discussion with Jay about what it was going to look like in there. So with SHPO, you have to be very careful what you kind of put on the walls and mess with, etc. The plaster, we kind of been eyeing up that west wall when you walk in the vestibule. Those two, there was a bathroom, kind of a mop closet, are coming out, and that's going to be one big wall there with like some furniture, kind of like a waiting area. Those are all coming out. That's going to make available one big wall. And what we've kind of come up with is some of that court has to come out, if not all of it, the original maple court. We want to take that's a tongue and groove court, each one of those boards, put it up on that west wall in that vestibule, and have the original maple court restored on the wall, and either stain or etch in a maple tree, whether it be three-dimensional or actually stained in. And then the donors, 100, 250, or 500, gets you a different size steel maple leaf that you can have your name carved in it, and it would span these maple leaves all over that tree as you walk into the left. And I think that would be pretty exciting and get a lot of people, at least a lot of 100, 250, 500 donors. And then obviously if you wanted to go 2 $100 donations, you get 2 small leaves, or however you want to do it. But quite a bit of space in there for that type of operation. So that's what we've been working on. Made some contacts. I reached out, talked to a company in Florida. They do this kind of work. It's a little pricey. They actually carve you out a physical tree. That's kind of what we were thinking, like that. And then as we talked through it, realized SHPO would probably like us to preserve that court and involve that somehow, and that would be a little bit more palatable for them. And then, just trying to see who would even just do that work and kind of get our heads around it and talk through it. And then I think we're thinking about just trying to keep that money in Baldwin as much as we can. So we're going to reach out to Bryce Precision. They have a water jet cutter that they could possibly do that. And then, whoever to assemble that court, which is just tongue and groove. There's some pretty good parts to left of that court. So that's kind of what we're thinking there. Lynn put together a pamphlet. Oh, she can't be here. That's going to kind of go with that. We want to hit the ground running as early as we can, so we can still catch a little bit of 2021. That's when people kind of tend to give a little bit more before the end of the tax year. So that's where we're at on the fundraising piece.
Then we talked about the fact that that's ongoing. There's no end
Yeah.
to that, right?
Yeah.
It's
Perpetual.
We can
perpetual.
Keep on adding those leaves.
Right.
I forgot the floor was maple.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make another tree.
So when do you think you'd be able to get a verdict from SHPO about that?
Jay, we met with Jay, and he doesn't think it's going to be a problem because we're keeping the original material still in the building, and they like to see that. And so
If it's a problem, we just do something else, right? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
impact the fundraising.
I mean, it's really, we talk about it, hanging a picture. You really can't hang a picture in there. I mean, you really can't hang a banner in there. I mean, it's kind of the same thing obviously it's a lot more massive, but the wall would still be preserved. Beyond that, we're already taking out those 2 walls there, which if that passed SHPO, then we're cutting a big giant rectangle for the warming kitchen. I mean, we're already making manipulations to the building within certain boundaries there. So I think we're within those. I don't think it's going to be an issue. We've talked through that quite a bit. So here we are.
Here we are.
Has this council ever bonded anything in the last 2 years, or was that, most of that was before?
I don't think this council has.
No,
So the
because we leased the fire
process-
truck.
I don't know if anybody needs to know what happens next. If this were to be approved, then it goes out for bids, right?
Correct. So if this resolution's approved, it goes, the design work gets done, the rest of the engineering on the actual building gets done, and that takes about 3 to 4 months. By the time that's all done and the bids go out for bid, then once the bids are received, Jay will bring it back to committee. We gotta do some value engineering or whatever at that point. We heard that a lot last time. Then we try to do that to get the price down, or if it's acceptable, bring it straight to the council. Either way, the bid would come back and
let's just say the bids come back and they're all super high. I don't anticipate that. I won't be here, but I forget what the options were with the bond money itself. If you rejected it and said we don't want to move forward, we had bonded several things all at once. And I can't remember what the options were if those bids come back and let's say it's too much.
Well, you could just return the bond money.
Right.
As long as there's no early payoff, you can pay it off.
Correct, Glenn?
Yeah, you can't accept a bid that's over your estimate.
Yeah.
So, unless you can, well, you can rebid the projects. The last thing you would do was, yeah, you could return the bond to yours, you're not obligated to go out 20 years. If you don't have a project, that's not gonna go out 20 years, so.
So the value engineering would be to get it back down to the estimate, or the bond amount.
Correct.
Yeah, and essentially, it's once you pass this resolution, that's a not to exceed number for the project.
Makes sense.
Any more discussion or questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll take it. I move to approve the resolution authorizing and providing for the acquisition and construction of community and recreation facility improvements in the city of Baldwin City and providing for the payment of the costs thereof.
I will second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is the mobile home park ordinance amendment. Second reading of that. Anybody here from the public like to speak to that? No? Council discussion on that? All right, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the mobile home park ordinance amendment. That's close enough.
I'm trying to find it.
Close enough.
I don't have it pulled up.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second, Scott?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item, annexation ordinance, second reading. Russ, do you wanna, give another brief synopsis on this real quick?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. This first annexation, this is the property that's located east of the Heritage subdivision. It's kind of like a boot-shaped piece of ground. They're petitioned, to be annexed into the city.
Any more questions for us on this annexation?
Talked about this last time, is this gonna be city utilities or Evergy or? on this
Well,
one?
so as far as this parcel is concerned, this would be, the electricity would be with the city of Baldwin City. And then we already have sewer and water infrastructure already out there, kind of in place right there at that corridor.
Any other questions for us? Thanks, Russ. Anybody here from the public like to speak to this agenda item? No? Council discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the ordinance annexing real property into the city of Baldwin City, Kansas pursuant to the petition and consent of the property owner.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second, Scott?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item, annexation ordinance, second reading.
All right, the second annexation property is, located right across the street from the Intermediate Center, right there on 56 Highway, just on the north side there. It's kind of a somewhat of a pie-shaped property that they're petitioning to be annexed into the city. So, any questions I can answer on that, or?
Well, this one, we had the Evergy discussion.
Yes, that's correct. So right now, my understanding is that's Evergy's territory. So that would be something that the city and Evergy would have to come together and decide which way to go with something like that. So.
Any other questions for us? Thanks, Russ. Anybody like to speak to this agenda item? All right, council discussion?
So it would be on city water and sewer and the whole.
Yeah, so if we continue to how it is right now, it'd be on city, water, sewer, Evergy.
Assume our utilities are just across the highway.
They are, it's not part of the territory, so the city did it actually out by Brian's area back in, I think, 2014, 15, where they purchased the area down 6th Street at that time. That's just gonna be a discussion that council will have to have, or see what the property owner wants to do, and kind of have that dialogue back and forth on that, but currently, right now, it would fall within from my understanding.
Yeah, so how does that impact the buildability cost of that land for a developer? Does
I
that
don't know,
potentially
no.
increase that, or is that all borne by the city, just to get that,
For the
water and sewer?
The developer has to pay to get the utilities out to the property.
Okay, so I guess my following question then is, they're gonna leverage RID, right, to do that, and I don't think that covers necessarily all those costs. It's just a property tax abatement back to them. So I guess what I'm trying to think of, has the developer thought through whether this thing can still have the price point for absorption if we have to spend some money on utility
Extensions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I would assume, again, this is me assuming, that he's gonna do his cost analysis, and then, because every property owner will have the ability to come in front of the city council to negotiate their RID contract. And I'd assume that will be part of his ask, is saying, hey, I need X number of years, because my projections show with me having to get those utilities out here.
I assume we would provide them with a cost estimate for us to extend.
So the water and electricity is actually, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's installed by a subcontractor. That's not
Correct.
installed by the
Yes.
city. The only thing that's ever installed by the city is the electricity side of things.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Entertain a motion?
I move to approve the ordinance annexing real property into the city of Baldwin City, Kansas pursuant to the petition and consent of property owners.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Scott?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Brian?
Yes.
Corey?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item, rezone ordinance, second reading. Russ?
All right. So this property is located over on South Street. The owner's petition to go from R1B to R2, which means multifamily. The property directly across the street, as well as the property to the west, as well as the property catty corner there. There's been about 4 different rezones for multifamily in that area that they're petitioning for. This has gone through the Planning Commission on November 9th, where we had a unanimous decision, where we had a public hearing to hear from any residents or concerns. And so that's kind of, if there's any questions that I could answer about this rezone.
Thank you, Russ. Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Council council discussion? All right, I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the ordinance relating to rezoning certain property from the single-family residential district R1B to the two-family residential district R2, all within the corporate limits of the city of Baldwin City, Kansas.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Scott?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item, fire chief appointment ordinance. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory unless anybody has questions for Terry. Not, anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, council discussion? Not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve an ordinance providing for the fire chief to be appointed in the city of Baldwin City, Kansas pursuant to Charter Ordinance 28, Section 2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Scott?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Brian?
Yay.
Corey?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item, library funding. Scott, you want to give a synopsis?
Yeah, I can start. Apologize for the late entry in Google Docs. I think I got in late today, but just to summarize kind of where we're at. The Budget and Finance Committee got some good information from the library board about their current salary costs and a comparable to Lansing, which is a bit bigger budget-wise, city-wise. Yeah, that's Glenn's. Yeah, Glenn. There's actually one. Glenn did one early on, and I've kind of done one using our salary schedule. I'm just trying to find out where that one. So what we were trying to do is just look at, if we take the analysis was looking at bringing the library into the city as an entity, which requires obviously that the employees become city employees, and then the math becomes we just approved the 2022 salary schedule. We've got a base minimum rate of $13.16. So first look was, okay, if we take where the employees were at, they were hourly, part-time, moved them into that minimum rate, what does that look like? And let's see if I can pull it up. Yeah, I think that's it. Might have to shrink that down a little bit. So what we're just trying to do is look at, from a mill levy equivalent perspective, what does it look like? I'm going off of memory here because I don't. There it is. So if you just look at doing that simple math of the 5-6 hourly employees and the library director, and you move them over to the new 2022 salary schedule as city employees, first of all, their pay increases were anywhere from 0 to 32% year over year, depending on where those 5 were at an hourly rate currently. And then we just add like a 7% increase for the library director. So what that nets out to is about a $14.6 thousand increase in salary. And then you've obviously got to add, about 10%. I think, Glenn, you used 15. I've heard 10 for
For benefits, yeah.
well,
I
yeah,
just
for
yeah.
workers' comp and payroll taxes. So you have to add that, to any salary that you offer. So really, what it looked like in the end, and I don't know if you got there, it looks like we just do that increase there to get them to the bottom of the salary schedule. From what I looked at, it moved from about, I think they had budgeted, and I think we included in the Google Docs the library's current budget. I think they had budgeted about $116,000 for pay this year, and those changes have moved to about $138,000 next year. And what that means is that 138.5 would require about $3.5 mills of what we expect the mills to be next year, mill equivalent. So we $38,600 per mill last year. If you take 3% growth, that's about 40,000. It's probably more than that. I just use 40,000 if that's what a mill's worth. $138,000, $500 is going to require 3.46 of those mills next year. Okay, so you kind of think of where they're at. They're at 4. What we projected they would move to 3.46. Now the discussion is the state cap's 5, right? So there's still room left in the state cap, and I think you kind of see why they've been petitioning for some revenue growth, because they've been bumping up against lack of salary raises, et cetera. Just to get into our minimum, it's going to require 3.5 mills next year of the new mill rate. So that's one way to look at it. I think what we really want to do, invest in for some more information all on the budget, is we have to also rationalize in other costs. There's maybe some savings around rent and utilities. So it's almost like we need to look at the whole budget, not just the salaries. That's a piece of it. It's over half of the budget, but there are other ways that actually may make it more or less attractive. So what we want to do, and they've provided that budget to us, is sit and look at that and compare where there might be some efficiencies if they come in relative to what they have the budget. If they don't, versus and just come back and say, okay, it looks like this is what it would cost to bring them in at these pay rates, and with the current expenses that we expect them to have next year, that would be borne by the city now instead of
Ben's working on the cost analysis, just like what we showed you for the Bower building tonight. He's working on one of those for the library as we speak.
right.
We sent him that whole picture, so he had the whole picture, build it in.
So what does the library think about being part of the city? Has that been discussed?
I think that's obviously going to be a decision that would be up to them. I'm not sure that the city would force them to. I think what we try to do is come forward if this is an option. If it's not an option, it's off the table, and it's a matter of, do we rescind the ordinance and go to 5, or do we do something else? But we're just trying to look at, is there another way that actually works for everybody from a cost perspective? Don't know. It would be up to the library if they even wanted to do that. But I think we have to say it's feasible first before we even ask. But I think they're receptive to explore it. They have been.
Sure.
So yeah, that's how that would work. And then the decision will be leave the ordinance in place at 4, remove it completely, and let it go to 5 at the discretion of the library, where they don't have to take all 5. They would have authority to 5, or something else. And that, so we want to get to this point and say, is this even an option? If not, let's stop talking about it. Let's talk about the other 2 options. Other 3 options there. And we should be able to get to that, the council should be able to discuss that in January and have that decision.
I think our next finance meeting is, since this Friday is Christmas Eve. Scott was unavailable. Corey and I were willing to meet, but Scott wasn't. So we had to move it back on Friday.
Not a team player.
If I can dish it out, hey, first of all, not even close to reality, but I give him kudos, he got me one. But if you want to look at this spreadsheet, that's, I think you just kind of got to get your mind around what we're talking about from a mill perspective, and how does it work under the 5?
Is there anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda? Step up, state your name and your address.
Joe Smith, 1308 High Street in the city. I'm not challenging Scott, but I have a question. Is there any way to maintain the mill levy as it is and still help the library funding, or does that cover this 3 mills that you're talking about? It's a little difficult for me to hear sitting back there. I'm sorry that I asked.
Not sure I fully understand the question. And
I think he's asking if we have other funds in our budget where we could help the library without increasing the mill levy.
Great.
Is that accurate?
And so Jerry, normally we don't take questions, but since you're a special guest,
No, I can wait till next month.
no, but that's a good question. Others might have the same. I mean, that's always an option. I mean,
I'll take it.
that's always an option where, I mean, there's nothing that ever stops the city from diverting funds into the library. That's always been on the table, never been off the table, will always continue to be on the table.
We're just trying to work through every option available right now.
I
Just-
understand.
So yes.
I understand.
That is actually absolutely something that could be worked in the budget outside of the 4 mills that they're currently getting.
And leave the mills as it is and deal with it from year to year.
That is a possibility, yes.
You know, that would be something that I would be interested in pursuing. I'm not an educated person myself, and I am for education, and I am for the library. If we can figure out a way to assist the library, I'm for it. So when I take that seat, keep it warm and keep me in mind so you can help me. But that is my question.
That was a good
If we can get
question.
around- If we can get around what it is now and still help the library, I'd like to see us try to figure out a way to do that.
All right, thanks, Jerry.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else like to speak to this agenda item? So, any further council discussion on this or questions or something you'd like the committees to take a look at?
I think so.
All right, next council committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
We talked about both things that we talked about in the committee meeting, so we're good. Don't have the next meeting on the calendar yet. We'll announce it when we figure it out. I'm not sure when it's gonna be.
Oh, no worries, we're on your schedule. All right, community development, Corey.
Same, everything's kind of been hot topics from what we discussed today. We're gonna continue on that fundraising path, and we will meet on the 27th as well. Kind of kick that off, so a lot of work to do.
Public safety, Susan.
We did not have any agenda items, so we did not meet. Next meeting is scheduled for January 11th.
Public works, Julie.
Yeah, we discussed, the problem with, them having meter cans available. We only have one, and, they had been ordered in July, and they have not been received.
So they did get, I think, 5 more.
Oh, did they
Yeah.
since our meeting?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
They did get 5 more.
Okay, good, because they were saying that it, you know, even trying to get them from somebody else was almost impossible. So, okay, good deal. The service truck was ordered and they're having to wait for the, for the bed to be put on it. And the bucket truck arrival has been pushed back to January. And then Rob brought up that the headstones at the cemetery are starting to sink because they were not put in properly, so they're trying to set up some guidelines for setting the headstones so that doesn't happen.
Which cemetery?
I imagine the city went out by.
All of them or newer ones or
I
Your
didn't
ones
say.
too.
everything?
Really?
Just staying on.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
The road salt for the winter has been ordered and is in. And at the last meeting, we had a question, I think, about the size of the water and sewer line that goes to the John Deere. So we're doing that area where we just annexed. And it's an 8-inch water line, so just throwing that out there. We also had quite a bit of discussion regarding some city code and ordinances that Public Works would like to be considered. Quite an extensive list, and I told them I would give the list to Casey, and I did, and so.
Yep, and Glenn has that list.
I do.
All right. And the next meeting is, I don't know, January 13th.
Actually, Brian,
No report.
City administrator comments.
Just one thing, I want, everybody to keep in mind that we still have one more, item to, cover with our strategic planning. Heading is come back, finish all that up, we went through 2 planning sessions, but we need a follow-up study for that, and we kind of put that off this, I think we're scheduled for the 4th, we decided that was not the best time to do it, so sometime here in January. I know her schedule is pretty heavy, but I don't, we need to put our heads together and come up with a date that works for everybody and see if she's available, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Just we get it on the calendar as soon as possible, because if you don't, it'll just keep slipping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just need to do the final meeting and wrap it up.
Do we just want to schedule for the last Tuesday of January? 25th?
It's a Tuesday one, it doesn't need to be a Saturday one?
Yeah, I don't know what our schedule, I mean, we've met all different days, every week, and
I guess, do you want to check with her? And
I can see
what-
with her, yeah, I know she fills up pretty quick. And a lot of people are doing probably what we're doing right now, trying to get scheduled.
Let's start with her and get 3
Yeah,
days.
I'll see what
that
she's
work
got
for
her, so,
And then we'll bring those to the council next week.
okay, we'll do that.
Is it?
That's it, yeah.
Any other staff comments?
Okay.
Okay.
But yes, as some of you may know, I have accepted a position with the district court in Douglas County to become the new pro tem judge up there starting January 18th. So,
Congratulations.
which corresponds coincidentally with our second meeting of January, which I will attend because that's when the appointments happen anyway. So you got me for 2 more meetings. So thank you.
Congrats, Blake.
Congrats, yeah. Hope I never see you up there.
All right. Any council comments?
I have a question. We get the vendor list every month, or 2 weeks, I guess. And it shows where the money is going out, but we don't have any list of money that comes in. I mean, the revenue that comes into the city.
Yeah. But I mean, that's part of the entire budget, so we just receive our taxes. So we've never had that. Is there even a revenue list that is?
It's in the, cash balance report, or, what we do, yeah, we do give that also. Just breaks it down in a very large category. It's not gonna break it down as fine as the vendor summary report that shows where you spent everything. It doesn't do that, but, that's the only thing I could think of that would probably match what you're talking about.
I think to your point, though, we still have work to do on how we look at these. Looking at the bill detail, I think providing that's great if you want to dig through it. I'm not sure that's what my role is intended to do. But I do think to your point, we need to have much more understanding. We've made some strides. We haven't gotten there where it's not necessarily what the revenue is, because we budget to a revenue number on when we start the budget, right? So we know what our taxes are gonna be. So when we set the budget by each fund, and so really what you're saying is we ought to see where we're at, and we do on the cash balance report, where here's what we budgeted for, here's where we are year to date, and I'd like to see where we are compared to last year to date. Are we ahead or behind? And you can see how we're running into an issue because we didn't budget enough. Our expenses are beyond what we projected our revenue to be. And that's where you can get ahead of some issues. I think that's what you're looking for, is how do we know if we're on track or not? And we'll get there. But I'm with you, I don't get much out of that report either.
No.
The only comment I have is, Glenn, are we prepared for our work session next Tuesday on the substation?
As far as I know, yeah, I haven't heard otherwise.
Just a reminder that we have a
Yeah.
work session next Tuesday.
Right.
7 o'clock.
28th, I believe, is, yeah.
All right. Nothing else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Been moved.
A second.
I'm
business
giving him an open.
All in favor, say aye.
Can't give him too long.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
That's exactly right.